All right, I think we're live. All right. That looks like things are going. We had some technical difficulties. Let me just double check a couple of things. All right, welcome back. I think we're good. This is season 2, I guess you could say. It's been about a year since I've last done one of these. A lot has happened. A lot going on in the background, hard at work, things that haven't really discussed yet because I was running into a lot of issues and things. So last we left off, PenPublic, which is this web app that is designed to be like a job aggregator for public sector jobs in America. And so far, we've done a lot with California, New York, Florida, and Texas to certain degrees. So we're trying to be like an Indeed, but more dedicated to the public sector. Last we left off, I was switching from AWS S3 buckets to Cloudflare R2. So just diving into some of the issues that kind of arose from that. Yeah, it required a whole bunch of changes, but more importantly, one of the biggest changes was scaling from one state, California, which was kind of like my test state, to multiple states. Like I said, we have Texas, New York, Florida, and hopefully DC in the coming months, because that's obviously big government and public sector employment. And so, just generally speaking, California, we've got most cities, counties, state, federal, some schools for jobs and agencies listed. Still working on getting some more of those schools, especially the UCs and CSUs. As far as New York, we've got New York City, state of New York, and the federal USA jobs. Texas, we've got federal and some state departments, and Florida, we've just got the federal jobs. So still a long ways to go, and hoping to add more as time goes on. But I feel like we're in a good spot now to start promoting and trying to get some more viewers or users, I should say, because I think a lot of people could benefit from it, and especially with everything that's been going on and in the world, and yeah, just how hard it is to get jobs these days. So that's kind of what's been going on. Like I said, the scaling issues going from one state to multiple states, that just took forever. Like, it took months. I had to basically refactor a good chunk of my code, if not all of my code. From the front end, I had to rename like all my IndexedDB databases. I had to rewrite a majority of my Pina stores for state management. And I had to basically move the way the logic works and make my URL, which is where you can type in all your queries for your job searches, and make that the single source of truth now. So that was a big fundamental change that just basically required a lot of iterating with AI, cloud in particularly. These days we're on Cloud 4.1 Max. That's what I'm currently using, but for the last year or so, I was on Cloud 3.7, And I guess we'll just jump into the next topic, which I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit, is AI and kind of how it's been a huge lifesaver when it comes to building this site. And for someone like me who's not really a CS major, never took a CS class in college, I've done some like minor programming here and there, coding, but yeah, cloud has been a real godsend when it comes to coming up with design architecture, coming up with mostly debugging. It's like having a peer programmer with you. That's the term they used to use in schools. Just someone who's more senior that can look through your code and do a quick code review and say, hey, this could be a possible source for your error. Here's, you just show it to debug screenshots and it can help, point you in the right direction, which is huge. And a lot of times they'll try to solve it for you, but yeah, it gets a little overambitious at times. So my experience with Cloud 4.1, I don't feel like it's much different, honestly, than 3.7. I feel like 3.7 and 3 in general was a huge jump in cloud coding capabilities. It's annoying now because I feel like 4.1 or 4 in general, you're just getting a whole lot less for the amount of tokens that you're using. And so it forces a lot of people like myself to pony up and pay for the max plan just to get your 10x or 20x amount of tokens to even make it usable. Because, like, on the basic plan, what is it, like 20-30 bucks a month? Like, you just run out of tokens in less than like half an hour. Feels like even maybe 10 to 15 minutes, like a couple of iterations, and I'm done. And depending on how you prompt it, like if it gets over ambitious and starts coding right away, you just might blow through a whole bunch of tokens, which is super duper annoying. And it goes off the rails. So I feel like the best way to use it is to give it so much detail, like, hey, I need you to write this function for me given, all these other supporting dependent files, and, don't do anything outside, don't try to create best practices that may not be necessary. We want the most simple, not over engineered code. Simplicity is the best. Fewer lines, the better to get, what you need done, I feel like. That could be just me. But otherwise, Cloud's been a great brainstorming tool. And 3.7 was annoying because it was so agreeable. And now 4.1, I kind of feel like they went all the way to the other end. And it's just so, it thinks it's right. And it'll just keep going on and on. And when like, hey, you don't have all this extra context I have because I didn't give it to you. So, like, let's hold the brakes. Don't go off in this tangent because you're just going to cost me more tokens. And now you're being over argumentative, which is kind of annoying, in that sense. So, I guess it's good when you're brainstorming to have a devil's advocate rather than a yes man. But when you're trying to code and debug and yeah, it's almost like you're fighting with, I don't know, someone that's really stubborn, and you're wasting tokens in the meantime. So that's just kind of my thoughts on the current state of AI. I think Cloud 4.1 is like Opus. I mean, it's the latest, greatest model, state of the art. Google, they've got their own Gemini and ChatGPT 1 and all that. But I feel like they're not that far apart anymore. Maybe they're pretty similar at this point. And unfortunately, I don't see these giant leaps and bounds that AI is promising, all this AGI. I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime, honestly. Like, at the rate this is going, we saw some big jumps, from cloud 2 to 3, but from 3 to 4, like, it's been a year, and it's, I mean, marginally better. And to go maybe from 4 to 5, like 4 to 4.1 at this point, it's just, we're talking marginally better. It feels kind of like cell phones, how, they've gotten so good nowadays. Like, it can't really get that much better. Like, you're still dealing with like 1 inch sensor in your cameras. Like, you can add some fancy, you know, uh, image editing software into your phones, but it's still, the same small, tiny processor. Yeah, it's never going to be, a full on, the latest and greatest Intel chip in there, or yeah, whatever. But yeah, this is just kind of where we're at with AI being the hottest topic. Some say, we're kind of in a bubble, and I would tend to agree with those folks, especially the guys like Sam Altman and other CEOs, because just having used AI every single day, either for general purposes, it's kind of like a better Google, when Google was real actually good and usable. Um, and as far as coding, it's like a better Stack Overflow. I haven't touched Stack Overflow in a long time now, and but I remember I used to, type in all my questions into Google, type Overflow, and then scroll through all the forums, see if I could find some sample code that matches my case context, and then copy and paste that and try running it, modify, and get an error and post that error back into Google. So now it's just kind of taking away the iterations, and now it's all done inside the AI browser. And I know there's fancier editing tools for AI, like, what was it, Windsurf, and there's Cloud Code, and uh, forgetting the big one off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, I've tried some of all those, and I feel like those are even more of a trap because you have to use the API, and that gives it, technically unlimited tokens, but then you just blow through so many tokens. At least with the max plan, you are constrained. So, you can only use as many tokens up to $200 a month. But with the API, it's just going to go on and do whatever. And it's not necessarily good also, because the the conversations, the longer it goes, the more likely it just gets too much information inundated, and it can't remember everything precisely. And the longer the conversation goes, the worse the response and the output it gives. So then you got to start a new conversation, and then basically refresh it with everything that, yeah, you were doing before. Now, they've recently implemented some memory, which, is got some caching or can search through your conversations, but it's pretty at a high level. And it does miss a lot of stuff. Like, it's like it's kind of speed reading through all the stuff that you gave it or talked about in previous conversations, but it doesn't like know all the details. So you might have to like keep asking about, hey, we talked about this and this. Do you remember that? And they're like, oh yeah, we did do talk about that. Now that I remember, blah 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 blah. And so yeah, it's kind of frustrating. I wish it could just do all this code for me, but like the real power in the AI is the debugging. And in the past, I would get stuck because, I don't know anyone in tech. So if I have my own silly side projects, hobby projects, um, and then I would just get stuck and I would just give up. But with AI now, I don't think I've ever reached a point where I would give up because there's always some solution that I haven't considered. And it seems to have reference to all these documents. Like I haven't read documentation and God knows how long. And that's great because like AWS documentation was not good. And I used to have to pay for AWS support and that is terrible. Like it just was not good. Even though you're talking to a human, sometimes just getting to them, it's like calling for tech support over the phone and having to go through the whole like their Jira process. It's just took forever. Whereas, AI, at least if it doesn't know the answer or have the right answer, it'll give you some point you in some direction, and uh, you can iterate so much faster. And that's the real beauty of it. It's like I can crash everything and then rebuild everything. And God knows how many times I've crashed PenPublic. So, yeah, I feel like the real power of AI is it enables people like me who may not be able to build things, because I didn't have all this, previous tech background. I don't do, tech or back end or front end engineering for a living. So everything I do is, self taught. And, you can only get so far with those basic online videos of creating to do lists. And then, yeah, tackling on cloud and back end stuff. It's a totally different world. And so having cloud to kind of teach me some of, what are these concepts and then how to basically use code to glue all these things together, duct tape, and make things kind of work from one pipeline to another. That's really a lifesaver. And I think it can breed more creativity from folks. So by lowering the barrier to entry, for people that want to build web or just software in general. At the same time, now you have to pay for a higher subscription service. It's like the tools are becoming more expensive, and the improvements are marginal at best. So now you're increasing the barrier to entry by putting, a $200 fee, and it's not just cloud, it's open AI too. And so that's kind of unfortunate that it just boils down to people who have the means to pay for it and also the drive to stick through and debug and have long, dragged on conversations with cloud, maxing out their tokens and day after day trying to break things and fix things. And but that's just the nature of the beast, I guess. So, all right, enough of that about that for now. Next thing I wanted to talk about. Uh, so funding issues. So, some say it's not a real startup until you get some funding, and um, you know, uh, otherwise it's just a nice, cute little side project. And that is true. What's nice is I've built my stack such that it's more offline progressive web app first. So everything is client driven using caching aggressively with IndexedDB. And so that also reduces my server costs. Right now, the beauty of my web app is I'm basically paying no server costs, and I see it being scalable because I just have like a weekly update where if what you have stored cache locally is, more than a week old, it will go and fetch it from, like I said at the beginning, an R2 bucket now, rather than most web apps will, ping the server every time you do a search, right? So this is more like the old school way of when, hey, let's install this app onto your phone, and once it's installed, it'll run really fast. And that's exactly what it does. It just unpacks the updated jobs for the week, and it saves into your cache. And once it's stored in cache, it does all the job querying, searching from the jobs interface on your phone or your desktop or whatever device you're using. So, like, you don't have to have a great internet connection. You can still, function pretty well actually without it. And that's really the beauty of it. And so, bringing us back to funding, I've applied to, YC and TechCrunch Disrupt and Kapoor Capital and basically Cricket. So, I guess I'm just a small player in this game here. And even though I'm kind of in the backyard, until you get paying users, apparently, or if you're an AI startup, then you really don't get much notice, even out here in Bay Area, Silicon Valley. Had some ideas to maybe try getting some sponsorships, but I don't think I'm close to that. So that's kind of why I'm out here trying to kind of talk more about, what we're trying to do here with PenPublic and get the word out. And I'm just going to tell you where I am, hopefully each week, and progress just a little bit. The credit union out here down the street is Patelco. Sent them an email, walked into their office. I showed them that, hey, I had this huge spike in traffic, when I made a social media post on Reddit on like the California State Worker subreddit, and saw, a few thousand users and viewers in a week, which was, great on my Google Analytics. But, I never heard back from them, and, it is what it is. So, it's just unfortunate, but since I'm not incurring huge costs, I can afford to, bootstrap this thing for a while. I'll give you another quick story. I went to this tech event. I don't really get invited to many tech events, so this was kind of weird. This one was hosted by Kapoor Capitals, and it was their premier GovTech company. I can't remember the name now, but included one of the speakers from YC. I think it was Michael Seibel, and I'm a big fan of his and Dalton's videos online. So it was exciting to go out and hear what they had to say. And the GovTech space is sort of more or less where I'm also trying to do here. And what it turned out, though, was it was kind of more like a recruitment pitch by their CEO, and it sounds like they're just trying to hire more engineers. Um, from my understanding, GovTech, they don't pay their engineers as much in general, just because funding is a little bit hard to come by. It's not like a traditional AI company, but their CEO was really energetic and seemed like she was great at getting funding in general for their user data munging and matching application. Uh, it was, I don't even remember exactly what it was, but I just remember the conversation kind of went off about the future and talking about universal basic income when AI takes over and everyone's going to be out of jobs. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, this is some sci-fi stuff. I don't think we're close to universal basic income, let alone AI being this great destroyer of jobs and replacer. I mean, right now, it's not a joke that people are getting laid off. And maybe the excuse might be AI is automating some work, but the truth is, there was a lot of hiring done in the past. And, you know, we realized that we can offshore a lot of these jobs, and especially these tech jobs. And so they've been doing a lot of that, and a lot of jobs are going overseas where the costs are much lower for engineers. It's no surprise that engineers here are expensive, and H-1B visas are a huge issue, and tech companies, they're the ones pushing for it, and that's unfortunately displacing a lot of workers here in America. And so you hear these headlines about all these layoffs. It's not necessarily true because they're still hiring. It's just, they've got all these, basically, they've got all these requirements that they want, and it's definitely not entry level, but the pay is definitely not, what it used to be because the funding just isn't there anymore like it was when interest rates were a lot lower, and more people were borrowing, more VCs were funding, and now it's just AI startups that are getting money, and people who are experts in AI in general that are reaping the benefits now, not so much the average software engineer or the college grad that just got their degree and wants to work in, big tech or big fang, Mag 7, whatever they're called nowadays. Yeah, it's just super hard to get in now, and it's just really sad. But all that's to say is, yeah, I kind of got weirded off by them. I don't know if I'm a real traditional GovTech company anymore, if this is what GovTech is supposed to be. But, I still believe in helping people find jobs, especially in the public sector where I think, where job security, work-life balance, benefits, worker protections, those are all really important to people, especially now. And I think younger generations are starting to realize that as well. So moving on, speaking of funding some more, I was looking for some startup groups to join in general, just seeing what the scene was like. Because, like I said, I don't really know too many people in startups or in tech in general. So I went to this bootstrap breakfast in SF, and it was a interesting experience. It felt like a general show and tell, but there wasn't a lot of showing. So just exchanging ideas. But it felt like the folks were in such different spaces that I'm not sure how helpful it could really be, especially when everyone's got their own, problems and issues are very specific to their situations. It's can be a lonely journey, I guess. So, looking for other people who are on similar journeys can be comforting, but the reality is everyone's, you know, web app or their product is so different that, it's all you can really get is emotional support, I feel like. So that's kind of too bad, but maybe it's good for other folks, but I just didn't get too much help, I guess. I did get some ideas, but maybe later down the road they'll be more helpful and applicable. I guess it feels like I'm still early on, but at the same time, I feel like I've rewritten so much of this application. Refactored it who knows how many times uh, from scratch. Like, it's in a good spot. I feel like it's in a mature spot, and I'm just gonna keep building it on my own. Yeah, continuing to bootstrap. I would love to see some seed funding or be bought out by LinkedIn or someone in the future, but that's not happening. So, like I said, I'm not pressing too hard since my overhead costs are pretty low. It's mainly just Cloud Max that's really costing me. Everything else is essentially free tier for everything. Even, like I said, because I fixed a lot of the scaling issues going from one state to multiple states by rewriting everything on the front end, everything on the back end, and all the API gateways, the lambdas, and just everything, all the arguments, all the functions, all the variable names. It just was so much spaghetti code that rose out of this issue from scaling from one state to multiple. And so adding more states or more countries in the future shouldn't be that hard. It's just a matter of going out there and aggregating all these agency websites now. And so that's something that I'm going to continue to do, and Cloud's going to help me. But the heavy lifting of the application is pretty much done. When I do eventually get more users, I would love feedback, features, and ideas. But I think at this point, I want to focus. I guess this segues into going forward now. So, going forward, I really want to kind of talk more about putting PenPublic out into the public. It's technically been released, and I don't know, alpha, beta, whatever. It's just, it's out there. It's usable. It's helped. I've got a lot of stories from friends and family who have used it to some degree and gotten interviews. Some have gotten job offers, so congrats to them. On a personal note, I do use it from time to time myself. Most of the time, I'm checking weekly to make sure that it's doesn't run into some kind of bug or something and it doesn't crash. So there's actually something I need to fix, maybe tomorrow or later this week that I'll get to. Yeah, and basically, I want to get into content creation, marketing, get more into the YouTube channel, put out more information about why the public sector is good for most people. Not everyone's making 200, 300, 500K salaries, total comp in the private sector. And for those that are not, public sector is probably a better route for you. Of course, you can make more money, generally speaking, in a private, but everyone knows now that, there's no loyalty in jobs. People don't stay, 30 years anymore, but you do see that in the public sector still. And I do know people that, have been in the same, basically same employer for, 10, 20, 30 plus years in the public sector. And it's it pays the bills. It's comfortable. You get a good work-life balance. You won't ever become rich like you will, 10 years into Fang company as a senior tech lead engineer. But that's definitely not everybody. That's a small percentage of people that can get there, even, in the Bay Area. So for the rest of us, uh, public sector is great, and I'm just want to put out more information about that um, out into the world, social media. And to do that, I'm going to be using more AI tools for content generation going forward, such as right now, investing time learning in Comfy UI. It's kind of like a music video editing node interface. If you've ever used any of those softwares, you could probably know what I'm talking about. You have a whole bunch of like nodes where you put your prompts, where your input, your images, your audio, whatever, input files. And then you have usually in like sound editing, you have some of your mixers or your transitions or your effects or whatever. And in this case, you have your AI models and all the arguments, prerequisites, inputs that it needs. So you connect those in, and then you have your output from each model. And so you create these workflows, and you can string together things for text to image, text to video, image to image, image to video, audio. So it's kind of takes there's a learning curve to it. Sure, you could pay, for a service like, was it Nano Banana or Sora? But yeah, a lot of those, that's another monthly SaaS subscription. Um, and you are limited to, with those, what you can really do with like Sora and stuff. It takes a few tries to get to what you want, and creating consistent characters, consistent audio and video, it's really hard to do. And eventually you're going to want more control over it. And that's where things like Comfy UI really are helpful, because you have a lot more control over your seeds and all your mixer inputs. I'm not an expert by any means, so it's going to take me some time to get up to speed with it. But those AI tools are kind of really interesting and exciting. It's different than the LLMs like Cloud, which are great for coding and stuff. But they can do some pretty great things as far as like deep fakes and stuff. I should caveat by saying pretty amazing things, scary to some people, right? But it's really not that powerful in terms of like it's gonna create a whole Pixar movie for you. Like that's not happening. Animated studios can use some of those tools to help them in their animation modeling, but I don't think it's going to be taking everyone's jobs anytime soon, despite all the hoopla. And in the news, people are trying to integrate these AI into their workflows for these big companies, and it's really, really difficult because, like I said, like the things that I can do, it's very limited. Um, Personally speaking, I know at our office, we've been given co-pilots, and it's great for emails, but it's not going to replace the engineer anytime soon. So yeah, it's these models are good for each use case, and so yeah, the use case when it comes to images and audio, I think it's strong in creating samples, and that's why you got all this AI slop, as they call it. These 10-second videos because that's what AI Sora can put out for you really easily. But when you want more customized things, focus things, characters, consistency, um, dialogue, voices, it gets a little bit more complicated. Um, yeah, so that's my journey in AI. And so I also had to upgrade my rig. Uh, got a new video card to help me out with that. Also got some more storage, which I had to transfer some files over. So I think some of my files kind of got lost or messed up in the transfer a little bit. So I'm going to need to do some debugging this week. I'll explain that more next week. But yeah, you might see some, maybe Texas, Florida, New York might be out of commission this week as I figure out what went wrong exactly. It's not completely broken, but I think let's just say some things got lost in this transition as I need to upgrade my equipment for AI generation. Yeah, I also want to, investigate, do some more reporting on, unemployment numbers, just the economy as a whole, and that kind of really strengthens the position of the joining the public sector. So I need to do some more homework on that. I was keeping tabs on that for a while, but kind of fell back, got busy with stuff, especially the holidays. Right now, it's tough. Also need to work on my API, so I'm trying to generate API. So I've got all this job data. Yeah, I'm gonna be using it to make reports and stuff. I don't think anyone else, or I mean, maybe LinkedIn or someone has as much public sector job data as I'm basically ingesting. Maybe some AI companies are too. God knows how much data AI is scraping from every single website these days. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, I do have a lot of public sector job data, and I could probably turn it into like an API database in the future, and that would be really useful. Maybe one day become like a Bloomberg tech for public sector job data. But yeah, it's work in progress. I had a sample one, but it was kind of incomplete, so I need to get back to fixing some things. Also brainstorming more features to add. Right now, I've got like a pension calculator, which is cool and all, but yeah, kind of once I get more users, more feedback, see what people want, you know, it would be great for people to have a way to compare their compensation in the public sector versus private, but it's not really apples to apples. There's so much things to consider, besides just base pay and yeah. So just tools I could add in the future, but that's kind of like low on the priority list right now. I'm trying to develop some content, maybe some like top 10 list reasons why you should join the public sector, and create maybe like a little avatar to do all the talking for me so I don't got to be on camera all the time. And I could just create like, an AI character. That would be great. And yeah, then I don't have to be the spokesperson for it, and I can just give you these weekly updates and yeah, go from there. So anyone's listening, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you guys again next week. All right, let's